Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at Campaign for America. John McCain is off this evening. We do have a lot to talk about tonight. Some recent events that are certainly affecting the lives of every American across this country. But I would first like to broach the subject of communism and socialism in America. During the past 2 years here on Campaign for America, we have been doing exactly what Ronald Reagan had done in his time, warning the American people that the Communist Party, whether it be from China, whether it be from some other nation that certainly lives under a socialist communist agenda, whether it be coming from them or coming from within, it is here. We have recapped over the past year the fact that communists have somehow, some way infiltrated many unions across the country, our colleges, our political landscape, our religious institutions, our elementary, secondary schools, and on and on and on. The Communist Party is alive and well in the United States of America, as it was alive and well in the 1950s and 1960s and onward during the Reagan administration, at least up until the time he brought the Soviet communists down. I say all of this because we are now at a crucial period in the time of American history to either surrender to those who are looking to destroy this very, very wonderful nation that God gave us, or to stand up and fight back, and I mean fight to win. Now, folks, we've seen over the past few years things leading up to what we see today. For example, over the past few years, there has been a concerted effort by the Democrats of this country, who I now define as Democrat socialists / communists, to take away our right to bear arms. In the United States of America, the Constitution of the United States gives all of us the right to bear arms. Now, look, I believe in reasonable regulations. I have no problem with that. I don't think anybody has problems with that. I don't believe a terrorist should have a weapon. I don't believe a convicted felon that committed horrible, violent crime should have a weapon. But those are individuals that should be dealt with in the court. It should not be dealt with in the Supreme Court, where a decision would be made that affects all of us. We all have the right to bear arms. In New Jersey, they're looking at some laws that will now restrict where you store your weapons in your home. Absolutely ridiculous. Right now in New Jersey, if you are transporting a weapon, the bullets have to be in one place, far, far, by the way, from the weapon in another place, the gun dismantled, and on and on and on. And they want to, in New Jersey, extend that to homes. Could you imagine, folks? You would have to store part of your weapon in a bedroom closet, another part in the living room closet, perhaps the ammunition in the basement. Who's going to enforce that? Who is going to enforce that? I want you to think about that, folks. Who is going to enforce that? I've asked the question when these draconian, tyrannical laws regarding masks. Well, there are some across the country, some of these Democrat socialists, that are mandating masks in your own home, mandating masks in stores, mandating masks in private property. Who's going to enforce that, folks? Who on earth is going to enforce that? Are we going to have the police knock on our door and have a no-knock warrant, search warrant to check and see who's wearing a mask? Are they going to be knocking on your door, checking to see where your weapons are? You know, one might say, well, that's a far cry. That'll never happen. Well, folks, I've got to share a few things with you. It may very well happen. Where in the United States of America, in our history, were you ever required to carry a passport? A little passport that gives you entrance into a store or entrance into another building somewhere in your community. Where has that ever happened in the United States of America? Never. It's happened in the Soviet Union. It's happening in China. It's happening in a lot of countries around the world where you have to show your papers. You have to show who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going. And folks, I've got to tell you, this is a prelude to a communist agenda that is being pushed upon the American people and where our freedoms are now in jeopardy. I've said all along, and I will continue to say this, that if you get a vaccine, that's your business, not mine, and not the business of the government. If you don't want to get a vaccine, that's your business, not mine or the business of the government. So why is the government making it their business? There is so much conflicting information coming out of the CDC, the National Health Organization, the World Health Organization, the White House, and you could just name up and down the media outlets and all the politicians and so-called doctors, like Dr. Fauci, who come on the air and tell us on a Monday, you got to wear your mask, but on a Tuesday, you don't need your mask. On a Wednesday, you need a vaccine. On a Thursday, well, you need the booster of the vaccine, but then we discovered on Friday, you don't need the vaccine and you may not need the booster, and on and on and on. Folks, in my view, and I'm only one American out of the millions across the country, but I think I'm pretty intelligent. And I always like to go by what the guy that you see over my shoulder said years ago, Ronald Reagan. Go by your instinct. Go by your instinct. What in the world's going on here? This is no longer a public health crisis, in my view. This is now a political crisis. We have a Democrat Party. The party of FDR and JFK has been turned into the party of Stalin, of Lenin, and of Marx. Now, those of you Democrats out there who watch this show and get all upset at me, especially when I tweet something out or put something out there and put the tag communism on the march, it is truly communism on the march. If your individual rights are being jeopardized, is that not communism on the march? If your freedom and liberty is being jeopardized, is that not communism on the march? How is it that we are not only going after, or not only seeing the Democrat Communist Socialist Party in this country go after the right to life, the right to bear arms, the right to free speech, but in many states across the country, especially at this time of the year, they're going after freedom of religion. Freedom of religion. Well, you can't put up a tree here because the tree represents God and country. You can't put up a manger here or a menorah here because, well, that has something to do with God. Well, you see, folks, atheism and communism come hand in hand. And when you look at and study the methodologies of the Communist Party, one of the first things they want to do is to take away any belief in God, any worship of a God, any chance that you could go to anyone, visible or invisible, meaning the Holy Spirit of God, for any comfort. They want to take that away. And they are working hard to do just that across the country. Which leads me to what's happening in the city of New York. Folks, just this past week, the city of New York decided to do what? They decided to think about and possibly now pass, before de Blasio leaves office, a law that will give non-citizens, non-American citizens, the right to vote in local elections. Non-citizens. Could you imagine? People who are not Americans, they want to give the right to vote in their local elections. Communism on the march, folks. Since when in American history can people come to this country and vote without being a citizen? In addition to that, you may need an ID card or a passport to show you got the vaccine, but you won't need one to vote. So it's a free-for-all now. Anybody could walk in and anybody could vote. This is how communists take over a country, state by state, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood, and home by home. Early on during the pandemic situation we've had here in this country, people like de Blasio and Newsom in California, and obviously de Blasio in New York, suggested that people in their neighborhoods should spy on their neighbors. In other words, if you see your neighbor without a mask, if you see them outside gathering and with more than two people on their own property, why not take a picture and send that picture to the police department, to the New York City Police Department? And what's going to happen next, folks? Are the cops going to rush to the home of the criminal without a mask on and threaten to arrest them, threaten to bring them to prison? Are they going to do that? Are the police going to do that? I don't think so. But even the thought of a politician going down that road, that American citizens should take pictures of their neighbors, should spy on their neighbors, and then call the police on their neighbors for doing what? For not wearing a mask, for not socially distancing on their own property. And then to top it off, when we heard about drones being used by some police departments around the country to do just that, to take pictures of American citizens on their property, in their backyards, or in their driveways for not wearing masks or not socially distancing. These are the things that are happening inch by inch, step by step across our nation. And we probably haven't even heard the half of it. Pastors being arrested on Sunday mornings for having church services, even in their parking lots. That's happened. You've read about that across the country. Moms and dads who have a vested interest in the future of their children going to school board meetings, being called and perhaps classified by the Department of Justice of this Democrat Socialist Party as terrorists. Moms and dads, that's right. You all know that. We've seen it on TV. We've seen videos of parents concerned about the education of their children being handcuffed at certain school board meetings. It doesn't stop there, folks. It even gets worse. There have been suggestions that in some polling places, and we have the facts here, it happened right here in New Jersey, that perhaps some state people or county people should go to not the polls, folks, the campaign headquarters of some candidates just to see who's coming in and who's going out. Reminds me of what I read that happened in the Soviet Union years ago, political officers. So if you are a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, call whatever you want to call yourself. But if you, in any way, shape, or form, support what's been going on in this country as a result of Democrat, socialist, communist, sympathizing and advancing a socialist communist agenda where our children and grandchildren will live in an America that we would have never imagined, then you truly are not an American patriot. I don't like to or never want to ever question somebody's patriotism. But I think we can conclude safely, folks, that individuals who live and prosper and are blessed in this country by the freedoms that all of us fought for, whether we were in the military or not, whether we were in police service or not, fire service or not, whether we were custodians or not, every American who put their hand to the plow working hard over the years have helped build this economy and built this nation to what it is. No matter what station in life God Almighty has given you, you are part of bringing to reality the American dream. But those of you who are sympathizers and otherwise in support of the socialist communist agenda, what about you? What have you done lately for your country other than help advance an agenda that's trying to tear this country down? My point is this, folks, is that if those of us who love this country don't wake up and put our hand to the plow, and I mean really wake up and really put our hand to the plow, we're going to go down a path that we may never be able to recover from. The economy is crashing. Look at the prices of food, of clothing, of energy. I mean, prices are going through the roof in a short period of time. Folks, think about this. This all happened beginning November of 2020, right? It all happened when Joe Biden took office, all right? It all happened over a short period of time. Can you imagine what's going to happen to this country in the next several months if we don't stand up and fight back? Now, what do I mean by fight back before the press people who are watching this? And by the way, before I get on to what I'm about to say, I've got a message for the press. In fact, let me wait. I'm going to first finish my thought, and then I'll get to the press. The fact of the matter is, folks, when I say fight back, I mean to get involved in the election process, to get involved in go to school board meetings, form committees in your neighborhoods, begin to look at the books your children are being taught with, get involved and run for your city councils, get involved in looking and speaking to and challenging candidates running for office. I'm going to tell you something, folks. Not every single candidate, whether they be Republican or Democrat, in fact, I won't even include the Democrats because I don't believe you could be a Democrat today. I really don't. I don't know how people want to even be involved in any way, shape, and form with that party unless they're going to be conservatives who are going to fight for America. So I'll just talk about the Republican Party because I am a Republican. Unless we have Republicans that are truly looking out for the best interests of this country, well, then they don't need or deserve our support. Now, two things to keep in mind. I'm not talking about extremism because we have that in the Republican Party, and I've been talking about that for months, as well as the Democrats. But the extremists in the Republican side of the party are doing damage to us, folks. What I say is we have to be willing to listen to Republicans who may not be 100% in favor of every single policy that you and I may not agree with. I think there's room to listen, and there's room to understand that if we don't get the whole pie, let's get a half or 3/4 of the pie. Let's get a seat at the table and then begin to make changes there. But the Republicans who continue to tell other Republicans not to go out and vote, not to support this person or that person, who continue to criticize and name call other Republicans running for office, I'm going to ask you, and I want you to think about the answer to this question. What purpose does that serve? What purpose does that serve? Now, I know we have Republicans in our party that are not representing the will of the people of this country. And I'll be the first one to say, well, they shouldn't be in office any longer. We know that. And so we remove them in a primary. But during a primary, we should not have Republicans viciously denigrating other Republicans. You want to attack policy? Yeah. But the second you cross that line as a Republican, you have lost all credibility. You have damaged your character. You have damaged the character of the party, and you have damaged the character of this country. I mean that, folks. That's why Campaign for America and Republicans throughout the nation are now truly rising up and addressing issues and policies that we need to address. I could care less if a person running for office 25 years ago ran into some sort of a problem when they were a kid, or even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's their business. If it's a personal matter, it's their business. But if they're coming forward with policies that are within the framework of the Constitution, then by golly, we need to listen to them. Now, I know there are what we call rhinos, Republicans in name only. I know that. And as far as I'm concerned, if those Republicans are fully, I mean fully sold on the Democrat, socialist, communist agenda and aiding and abetting that agenda, they need to go. They need to go. But Republicans who are willing to stand up and say, let's take a second look at this. Let's take a third look at it. Let's talk about trying to build a consensus here that is going to be within the framework and stand upon the Constitution. I think we need to listen. Because if we don't, as a party, we will not only be a Republican Party that ceased to exist, we will become a country that ceased to exist. Quite often, I point to the guy behind me, Ronald Reagan. Today, he would be called a rhino. Today, he would be called a traitor. Today, he would be called someone that is certainly not un-American. That's right. Why? Because he did the same thing that Abe Lincoln did in his time and that John Adams did in his time. All three of those presidents realized that at some point in time, they had to cross the aisle and they had to talk with the opposition without compromising their principles, without compromising what was written in the Constitution. And they stood their ground and they won, absolutely won, without calling names, without getting into the dirt and the gutter of politics. They did it with dignity and they did it with honor. Now, why am I addressing this particular issue tonight? Because I've been around the country, folks, and over the past few weeks, I've been throughout the state of New Jersey and in some other states. And I had the opportunity to speak to young people, teenagers, all over the place. And I got to tell you, I'm very troubled over what they believe politics is all about. They believe it's about denigrating other people, attacking other people. They believe it's about defaming other people. in these conversations I've had with these young people, I've asked them, well, what do you think about this policy or that policy? And overwhelming majority would say, well, who talks about policies? So-and-so's a nut. So-and-so's crazy. So-and-so has a big mouth. So-and-so this. I mean, my goodness, folks, this is coming from our young people as a result of the discourse that is being committed throughout the country from politicians who are so desperate to getting elected that they forgot their own character and dignity means something. I ran for office, as you know, in the state of New Jersey, and every time I ran, I made sure that I would not attack my opponents. I would not go after their families. I would not get dirty. Did some of them get dirty? Yeah, some did, but I didn't care because that wasn't me. That was them. And some of them paid the price for that at the polls. But I was able to walk away from elections I won, elections I lost. I was able to walk away with my character intact, but more so with helping build the character of my country and the character of this party. And I've talked to many, many people who have run for office that have taken the same path I have. Win, lose, or draw, you go in with dignity, you go in with character, you want to come out, you want to cross the finish line with dignity and character. I've seen things come across the internet and across my desk that are just mind-boggling and appalling from people running for office. They will, on both sides of the aisle, they'll just go down into dirt and gutter and try to do what? I'm trying to figure that out. Do what? Do what? Try to convince people to vote for you? Yeah, you'll get extremists. You'll get some people who are not paying attention to the real enemy of this country. The enemies of this country, folks. Yeah, it's communist China. Yeah, it's countries around the world that hate our freedom, like Iran and others. But the enemies of this country, folks, are living in this country. And those are the people who are advancing a socialist, communist agenda that's out to destroy us. I remember there was a philosopher or maybe even a cartoon character that said, I have met the enemy, and he is us. We need to wake up as a country, folks. We need to wake up as the American people we know we are. We need to wake up and take the lead on the national platform. We need to take the conversation away from those looking to destroy us. And the only way we do that is we get involved. And it all begins, as Reagan said, it all begins at the dining room table. It begins with a conversation at home, with our family, with our neighbors, extended to the school boards and city councils and state, local, federal government level. It begins with you and me. Why do you think we work so hard here at Campaign for America? You want to see our studio, folks? You want to see the where we're broadcasting from? One day I'll show you. This is not $1 million setup here. We don't really go out, and you know that. We don't go out and aggressively raise funds. We don't. And there's a reason why we don't do that. Not because we don't need the money. Look, we need every dime we can get. But the reason why we don't do that is because we want you to save your money for your children and your grandchildren and to pay your bills. Like you, I get sick and tired of receiving contribution request after contribution request, especially around election day. I'm getting mail from politicians running in my districts that I don't even know. I've never heard of them. Never heard of them, folks. But you see, this is what happens. These politicians, whether they're Republican or Democrat, actually take us for granted. That we're going to vote for them no matter who they are or where they're from. Why? Well, who else are we going to vote for? But my point is this. We need to stand up, to get involved, and to do this in an organized way. And who's going to organize it? You. You organize a little group in your home. We've offered to come into your home via Zoom, via the internet. We've offered to help you, the American people. And many of you have responded, hundreds as a matter of fact. Hundreds of you, where we've sent our playbook so that you can have meetings in your home, meetings at your civic organizations, and in your churches. We have done that, folks, and we've received a tremendous amount of emails from people getting involved or who want to get involved. And I still offer that to you and no cost. And you're not going to get a follow-up letter. Well, now that we sent this to you, would you contribute to us? Not going to happen, folks. The greatest contribution we want to see you give is to America, to this country. So when we look at this kind of stuff about New York City now looking, folks, to have people who are not American citizens vote, I got a problem with that. And I hope you do too. Now, it just broke today that the NFL, remember the NFL, folks, used to be a great role model sports program for our young children in school, right? The NFL. Well, it broke today that the NFL funding defund the police groups through Inspire Change program. Well, it's a little confusing, isn't it? Well, the NFL apparently has been funding defund the police groups through another group called Inspire Change. So I tweeted out, it's time for police unions to inspire change within the ranks of the NFL. So my point is this: if the NFL is sending money to organizations that are advocating defunding the police, then there's something the police can do. The unions could call upon the rank and file of police departments nationwide to no longer accept any overtime assignments at any of these NFL stadiums. Now, if they are assigned through their police departments, they have no choice. They got to obey their orders. But for the most part, a lot of these jobs, when you see cops at these stadiums, a lot of them are cops on overtime. Let the NFL pay for their own security. And then when they need a real cop to make an arrest, well, you're going to have to wait, guys. You want to know why? Because you, the NFL, decided to defund the police to a point where there are no cops left. Our police officers need to be in the neighborhoods and in the streets of our communities protecting the people, not protecting the bigwigs of the NFL, the multimillionaires, because that's what this is all about. So I really believe the police unions across the country need to talk with each other, get together, and address that with regard to the NFL and any other corporation that wants to hire cops overtime, and yet they're sending their money to defund the police projects. The cops should, through their unions, address this and refuse any overtime that would require them to go to these sporting events or corporations that need their protection. If they're ordered by the police department as part of their normal duties, yeah, you got to go. But believe me, folks, most of the cops you see at these places, it's overtime, voluntarily. If the money means that much to you guys, I got to tell you, no amount of money could sell my freedom. Now, there are a lot of people, folks, that are really upset now in sort of the more wealthier neighborhoods. What do you think of that? A year, 2 years going by, cities are burning, buildings are burning, Black Lives Matter running all over the place like lunatics, threatening cities like New York. We're going to burn your city down. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. In Chicago, they're still shooting. I'm surprised there's anybody left in Chicago to shoot. They're still shooting people weekly in Chicago. The murder rate across the country has gone up dramatically. I mean, all over the country. I was on a TV network today discussing that issue of the murder rate throughout America going up. And I shared with the audience, there is a common denominator. You know, as a cop, as an investigator, we're trained to look for common denominators with regard to homicides or any type of crime for that matter. And the reason why you look for a common denominator, it may lead you to a suspect. Well, not only myself and not only cops across the country, but a lot of individuals with, let's say, common sense, whatever happened to that, I don't know, especially when it comes to Congress. But common sense showed us, folks, absolutely showed us that there is a common denominator, folks, with regard to all these crime rates increasing, and especially the homicide crime rate. And the common denominator we all discovered is this, that all these increases in crime, murder, burglary, on and on and on, are happening in Democrat-controlled cities. What do you think of that, folks? Check it out yourself. Democrat-controlled cities are being decimated by criminal elements because it is these cities who have Democrat politicians who are in favor of and advance the socialist communist agenda called bail reform, early release. Need I say more? So bail reform, you get arrested before you even get into the police station, you're out on bail. You know why? Because there is no bail. Early release. Well, you got 25 years for murder, but you were a good guy. So we're going to let you go now. Or how about the latest excuse? Well, we have a pandemic. Although you raped 15 people, you know what? We're going to have to release you. Folks, these things are happening across the country. These things are happening across the country. And I keep on being asked, what are we going to be doing about this? We can do a lot. And I'll share that with you in a minute, because the two other things that I want to lead into as we wrap things up. One, murder rate's up, the burglary rate's up, the looting is up, the mugging's up, the assault's up. For a year and a half, 2 years, not much being said, right, by the elite, by those in power. But now we're getting information that their neighborhoods, who are they? The rich, the ones who are making laws that you and I have to abide by, but that they don't. The ones who are looking to defund the police, the ones who are looking to take our right to bear arms away. Now they call these criminals, by the way, I got the word right here. Let me look for it. They're called mobile criminals. Okay, folks? Mobile criminals are now attacking the wealthy in their neighborhoods. They're breaking into some of their homes. I warned a year ago or so. I remember I warned that, sooner or later, these criminals are going to say, you know what, the middle class people, the hardworking man and woman of this country, they've got nothing left. The government's taking it. You break into their house, what are you going to find? They got nothing left. So we have to go somewhere where we know we can get something. And that is where the wealthy, where the rich, where the powerful live. Now, of course, those who are really rich, wealthy, and powerful, they have walls. They don't want a wall on the Mexican-American border, but they want a wall around their house. And if they don't have walls, well, you know what they have? Armed guards that they hire to keep the criminals in our neighborhoods and not in theirs. But you see, it's changing, folks, because the criminals are getting desperate. They can't find anything in our homes anymore. I mean that. What are you going to find? What are you going to find? A few bucks buried in a drawer? Or are they going to find, I don't know, anything of value, TV set? They get them anywhere they want. In fact, they don't even have to break into houses anymore. And they're not. They're breaking into the high-end retail stores, whether it be Gucci, whether it be another, high-end store. I'll tell you what, folks, these criminals are getting smart and they're getting organized. It's like flash mobs. They're getting on the phone, click, click, click. 20 of us are going to be breaking into this particular high-end retail store in this city at 7 o'clock a.m. tomorrow morning. Join us. And guess who shows up? All the criminals, not the police. No way. Why? They've been defunded. You don't have enough cops to patrol the neighborhoods. So, folks, so now the rich and the mighty, I've got some reports right here, are being affected by what you and I have been affected forever. Now let's see if something's going to be done. Maybe, maybe not. And as far as you all in the press, man, I've got to tell you, I've said I take no glory out of seeing anybody's career get hurt. But I've warned for a year and a half the press who don't like me or who don't like conservatives in general, who don't like the Republican Party, the press, CNN, MSNBC, press like that, some of the newsprint, even here in New Jersey, who sympathize with who? Socialism, communism. They won't admit it, but it is a fact. In fact, I'm surprised we've lasted this long on Facebook and Twitter. And I got the impression a couple of weeks ago we were shadow banned. You know what that is, folks? From what I understand, we're up there. We're posted, but we noticed that there's been at times a decrease in our viewership and then an increase. It's like a roller coaster. And that tells me one thing. Well, maybe some of the things I'm saying they don't like, but too bad, because we're going to continue to say it. But getting back to the press. So here's what I find out today through another news report. Well, we do know this, all right, that the Biden administration did go to CNN and other news outlets, at least that was reported, and beg them to lay off of Biden, to be kinder, to be gentler, not to go after his agenda that much. Why? Because he's going to feed into Biden what the press would really like, complete and total control over what? what we read and what we hear, whether it's true or whether it's not true. But for the most part, the press gives us information that's not true. They give us their opinion. But an NBC reporter, unfortunately for her, gave her opinion on the program called The View. I think that's on ABC. I've heard of it, never watched it. I understand there's a group of liberal women that, I don't know, whatever they do for the course of an hour, they seem to yell back and forth, somebody told me, and denigrate anybody who dares claim they're conservative or Republican. So anyway, this NBC reporter was removed, folks, from broadcasting NFL games. Why? Because she was not kind to, remember the former football player, Colin Kaepernick? Remember that guy? The guy that got on his knees and disgraced our country? He got on his knees, and then every other player decided to get on their knees, and they don't even know why half those guys got on their knees. But they did. I know one guy who got on his knees and knew why he got on his knees and was removed from the NFL for whatever reason. They won't admit it was because he got on his knees. That guy's name was Tim. His first name was Tim Tebow. Okay, Tim Tebow. Remember him? A good Christian. Got on his knees to pray. In the NFL, you can't get on your knees to pray. You could get on your knees to disgrace this flag, to denounce freedom and liberty. But anyway, so this NBC news reporter, I guess it was this past week, was on The View, and she criticized Kaepernick's comparison of the way the NFL leadership was treating football players. He likened that unto the days of slavery. So he actually said, well, the NFL is treating their football players like slave owners were treating slaves during the days of slavery. And to her credit, the news reporter, NBC news reporter, disputed that. So how could you compare men going on a football team who want to be there, who are being paid millions and millions of dollars, to slaves that didn't want to be there on a plantation, being beaten, whipped, tortured? How do you compare that? So she says there's no comparison. And it was foolhardy for him to do that. Well, folks, apparently somebody either in the NFL or NBC said, no, you can't do that. She's gone. She's gone. She's no longer going to be reporting, from what the reports are, NFL football games, because she crossed the socialist communist line, which leads me back to you, the press. I said it over and over and over again, week after week after week, that they came after the right to bear arms. They came after the right to life. They came after the right to free speech. They came after the right to worship. And you printed it all, and you didn't push back at all. You just soaked it all in, Mr. and Mrs. Press, and now they're coming after you. You will be told what to write. You will be told what to say. You will be told by who? By those who are sympathizers of the Democrat Socialist Communist Party. That's right. That's how it works. That is how it works. They will come after your right to be a reporter. And by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Press, when you guys and gals decided to unionize, right? A lot of you local reporters, I know in New Jersey, they voted to become union members. You're now a union. That was the nail in the coffin of your freedom, as far as I'm concerned. Because you will find out, as many of us who were in unions, and I was a union president, right? A PBA, local PBA president, except I ran things differently. You will find out that unions will not be controlled by its members. They will be controlled by individuals who have a political agenda to ensure that the membership will be appeased and that the leadership in the union and in government will be taken care of. That's a fact, folks. That is a fact. And that's what's happening in America. But there's something else happening in America. And I always like to finish things off with some good news. What's happening in America is that you're out there. What's happening in America is that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations like Campaign for America, campaigning for America, speaking all over the country, on TV networks all over the country, and in some places around the world, Folks, I've been on television networks in Europe and other places around the world talking about America, pushing back on Joe Biden's dark winter. In fact, I said the other day that Jimmy Carter must be breaking out the bottle of whiskey, my goodness, because Jimmy Carter in my lifetime was the worst president that ever took office until Joe Biden came along. Congratulations, Jimmy. You're now in second place. Joe Biden, according to 66% of the American people, is doing a poor job. 66%. And that's not a conservative poll. That is a CNN poll. 66% of the people in this country really don't believe that Joe Biden is doing a good job. So here's the good news. 2022, it's only around the corner. Beginning January, you will see, folks, as I will, we will see a tremendous amount of money poured into the Democrat Socialist Party campaign coffers around the country. Man, they're coming with everything they got because they know that if the American people, patriots I'm talking about, who love this flag, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, if you're a Democrat, conservative, even a moderate, as long as you're not supporting the socialist communist agenda, you need to cross over. If you're an independent, you need to support Republican candidates who support this flag and our freedoms and our liberties. Because they know, as Vladimir Putin knows, by the way, as President Xi understands of the Chinese Communist Party, they know that when the Republicans, I'm not saying if, but when the Republicans take total control of the United States Congress and the United States Senate, game over. For the socialists, for the communists, I mean it, game over. Because we, the people, will take our country back. We, the people, will take our country back to a point where we will control government and not government control us. Because after the 2022 congressional races, we're going to go after state assemblies. We're going to go after state senates. We're going to go after local school boards. We're just going to go after all of them. Every city, town, and village across America, we're going to come for them. And we're going to come within the framework of the law, within the Constitution of the United States, and we're going to do it at the polls. We're going to do it. We're going to win. And for those of you who are still anchored down in the past, do me a favor, stay there. Please don't show up and rear your head and complain and whine about the past. Get off your back, get up and do something to get America back where she belongs. A land of the free and the home of the brave. That's where we need to be. Beginning January of 2022, I'll be touring the nation. We're going to be visiting a lot of organizations, church organizations, other houses of worship. We're going to be speaking at these groups, GOP organizations. There's some candidates who we're going to be supporting, and we're going to do it all for the good of our children and grandchildren and future generations of Americans. One thing I like about doing what we're doing here at Campaign America, we're not running for office. Frankly, we have no skin in the game personally. But as an American citizen, we got a lot of skin in the game. So that's it, folks. So listen, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We're not going to be on the air for the rest of the year, which is only about, 4 weeks? So that sounds like a whole long period of time. But we got Christmas coming up next week. We have New Year's after that. So we're going to be doing some reconstituting, if you will. We're going to hopefully do a little work on our studio here. We're going to be looking at a new setup with Campaign for America. And we hope to bring you news as we see it. So a couple things before we go. Number one, campaignforamerica.com. There it is right there. We have a contact page. If this is the first time you're tuning in, just contact us. Give us your email, give us your name, and that's all we need. You'll get our quarterly intelligence report. Secondly, please go to Rumble if you can. I know all of you could. Go to Rumble, rumble.com. Rumble is going to probably be the last standing conservative platform as we move forward. Because like I said, between Twitter, Facebook, who knows how long any of us conservatives will be lasting on here. But go to Rumble. CloutHub is good. We're on that. But Rumble is something that we've been working on and working with, and we're pretty pleased with that. So go to those platforms, campaignforamerica.com. Also, people have asked, all right, folks, they have asked, and I think we got 10 left. We just ordered another 100. People have asked for this, and I'm proud of it. Governing the Affairs of the People. And what I'm happy about is some of the people who have asked for the book actually said that they're going to give it as a New Year's gift or a Christmas gift or some kind of gift to one of their public officials. So if you'd like to have one, folks, go to our campaign for the number 4america.store, and it's there. And if you order one, we'll ship one out to you as soon as we could. I don't know if you'd get it before Christmas. Maybe you will if they're shipped out by tomorrow. In fact, I'll call the people who are doing the shipping to see if they could do that. Can't guarantee it for Christmas, but certainly for the new year. And wouldn't it be nice? You know, one elderly woman actually bought 5 of them. And I said, gee, you have relatives in politics? She said, no. She says, I'm always invited. Listen to this, folks. This was pretty neat. She says, I'm always invited to these fundraisers, and I go. She says, I go, and I listen to the candidates. But she says, I'm a Christian. She says, I'm also one who likes to plant seeds. I says, well, what kind of seeds do you plant? What kind of garden do you have? And she says, well, this. She said, your book will be a seed, and the garden is going to be the politician I'm listening to. Because when they're done, and I go up to them, and they look for my donation, and I shake their hand, I'm going to hand them a book. Because in this book, folks, in this book is a treasure chest of wisdom, not from me, not from Solomon, but from God Almighty, from Jesus Christ, from the Holy Spirit of God. Yep, I included his words in a book that I was inspired to write. To do what? To perhaps help change the character, the demeanor, to individuals who are running for office from getting down into the dirt and mud, to lifting their character, to lifting their discussions, to lifting their campaigns up to a higher level that all of us in America could be proud of. We live in the greatest country on earth. This was a gift, folks. Don't let anybody tell you different. This shining city upon a hill was a gift from God Almighty. We are obligated. We have a duty to fight for this gift and to keep it, and then to hand it to our children and our grandchildren. So the best Christmas gift that we could give anybody, the best gift we could give anybody this Christmas and for the new year is to continue to fight for the gift we were given, freedom and liberty. Thank you for joining me tonight. Have a Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah as we continue. Happy New Year. I mean, just think about God's blessings. And folks, no matter what we see, remember, the best of America is yet to come. Because we, you and me, we the people of these United States are still standing. God bless you. God bless America. And keep our nation in prayer. And always remember that there is a God above. He hears your prayers and he'll answer them. Thank you, and God bless America.